I hit record and then I will. All right.
Yeah,
Welcome Wednesday. We have Rebecca Quinn, who needs really no introduction because she's our fabulous director. And you all probably know her, but I will let her talk about herself if she would like, but I will give it over to you, Rebecca.
yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you that don't know, I am the director of the North Dakota Brain Injury Network. And so today we just wanted to review that this is a work in progress of developing a state plan for brain injury for North Dakota. And so really we're wanting to have some public input on it. More than happy. That's the period that we're at, is getting public input. So wanted to have this opportunity to share the state plan where it's at with you guys, and then give an opportunity for discussion about it. And then, that there is a survey for public input, and having that as that opportunity, because really it is a state plan for North Dakota. So we need input from North Dakotans on it. So a history of state plans in North Dakota. So originally, North Dakota has had previously 3 state plans. The first one was in 1992, and then in 2005, and then in 2010. I have copies of all 3 state plans if anybody just is really interested in history and wants to see that background information. My undergrad degree is actually in history, so that is always my love of the historical piece. So these were have been iterations that public have come together to really discuss and set kind of what are our objectives and our goals for developing brain injury services in the state of North Dakota. So in 1992, I will say a huge focus of that was the development of a residential option. And one of the things that came out of that was the development of High Soaring Eagle in Valley City, and then also Dakota Point in Mandan as kind of our 2 residential. But really that was the impetus of development of North Dakota, of having a Medicaid waiver for brain injury services in the state. So that's what came out in 1992. 2005. From 2003 to 2005, North Dakota did have a federal planning grant, and part of that planning grant was to do a needs assessment and then develop a plan. From that 2005 plan, the state applied for a grant in 2007, and the state used the goals of that plan in 2005 to guide that grant that was in 2007, from 2007 to 2010. I will say the big impetus of that grant was I was hired to lead brain injury efforts in North Dakota, and so that was when I came on board. And then in 2010, we did update that state plan. But then really that's kind of where things stagnated. We no longer had federal funding, and so we just kind of continued to do the work. We did do an updated needs assessment in the state in 2016. And then I will say NDBIN has done an updated needs assessment in right before COVID. Am I correct, Carly? 2019, yes.
Yes.
So that's kind of been, but in 2021, North Dakota did apply for an Administration for Community Living grant. Actually, we applied before that, but it was awarded. And part of that grant, that federal grant, was required to this development of a state plan. So that has been really why we've led this effort of development of the state plan, kind of where it's come back. We have used funds from that grant to contract with the National Association of State Head Injury Administrators to facilitate the state plan development. So that's where that's at. Some of the considerations as part of the state plan. The state plan really will represent North Dakota's priorities for the next 4 years in developing our services in the state, and how we're really doing kind of the day-to-day direction and goals. The plan is kind of set up with having focus areas, and then goals, and then measurable objectives and tactics. And there will be annual opportunity to reassess this goal and reassess these goals and adjust as needed. And really the development of this plan has really involved many, many partners. There's been many opportunities for input. So I will say that staying it, the state plan development process up to this point has really been led by the State Brain Injury Advisory Council. Our State Brain Injury Advisory Council is in its infancy under, I would say, our current iteration. It was that the state council was developed in 2017. Sometimes remember this off the top of my head. 2017 was when we developed our current iteration of our state advisory council. Prior to that, we did have an advisory council, but it was not under the current role. Currently, it is a governor appointed advisory council. It is named in century code as to who is on that advisory council. And most recently, we just it just passed legislation and is headed towards governor's desk for signing, may have already been signed, to kind of increase the number of survivors. So changing that minimum from minimum of 1 to minimum of 2 for survivors and family members, and then adding some non-voting members. So, but that Brain Injury Advisory Council really has been our key central force within the development of the state plan. As part of that, the Brain Injury Advisory Council really developed a strategic planning subcommittee. So, and then the strategic planning subcommittee is what has really overseen the development of actually the goals and objectives, collecting information, that piece. Now, the two other groups that are listed here are the Survivor Engagement Group and us at North Dakota Brain Injury Network. Through the Brain Injury Network, we have been also providing input, particularly related to the work that we do and how we see the work that we do fitting in within the state plan, and that the state plan really helping guide the work that we do at the Brain Injury Network. And then the Survivor Engagement Group is a new group that we've newly formed, I would say about 6 to 7 months ago at the Brain Injury Network. It's something that we formed to give a platform and a voice for survivors in the state that want to be able to share their experiences, share their, advocacy efforts, their outreach, engagement efforts, all of that. So really the opportunity. We saw that there were many survivors that's what they were looking for. They were looking for an opportunity to have more of a platform for sharing their story, for being engaged in advocacy, those pieces. And so we've been developing the Survivor Engagement Group with those group of survivors to help them kind of lead that charge. So if you have any interest in that survivor group, feel free to reach out to either myself or Carly. It at this point is not a closed group. They are at this point kind of starting to discuss what they would look like, membership, all of that type of thing. But so if you really would like to, or any individuals you work with that would want to be a part of that, they're more than happy to. That group meets monthly. So that group has been really involved as well in overseeing the goals and objectives of this plan. And really particularly there's a survivor engagement goal, and they've really been helping with that piece. So that's kind of who's been involved in the development up to this point. So as part of this, it has identified 6 goals. So as I said, this was led through some surveys with the advisory council, that strategic planning committee, and the engagement group, some surveys to help to identify out of large things, some goals, consolidate some things, and really identify what are the key areas we want to work on. The first was being services and the development of further services in the state. The second was around education awareness and the need for increasing education awareness around brain injury. Housing was a big discussion. Financial support. Financial support is one that we kind of have repeatedly heard, particularly around access to services that aren't readily available or don't have funding for, financial support for the different things, data and self-advocacy. So going through those goals quickly, I'm now going to kind of walk through more specifics under them. So for services, one of the things that really was identified about part of services is the need for kind of some media and outreach campaigns around what services are available. This is number one, I would say, under services, but it also sort of falls under that education awareness, which is the second goal. So we kind of talked about how it bridges those two, but wanting to develop some media and outreach campaigns. This is one where we really have thought that we're going to look towards other states and what other states have done for media and outreach, and really being able to spread the word on what services are available and what options as regarding treatment services are available. So number 2 is release of information at hospital discharge. This is something that really is related to the idea of we would like to be able to get in front of people sooner that services exist, that we at the Brain Injury Network are here to answer questions for them, relay them on to any of the various service providers that might be meeting their needs. And so really wanting to get as quickly as we can after an injury in front of people to make sure that they have that support and that information. So that was something that, you know, a goal of really wanting to work on the development of that. NDBIN presence at various events. So that's something that we continually always strive to be as out in front of people as we can. You know, as much as we have that as an option. Before the session even started today on this, Carly and I were chit-chatting about, you know, an upcoming event in Newtown and wanting to make sure that we could get the coverage for it. You know, tomorrow evening, I'm supposed to be in Fargo doing a presentation and event. So different things that we can get in, particularly non-brain injury related. So whether it be, you know, something related to housing, behavioral health, you know, healthcare, workforce, any of that, as much as we can be there at those events to say, you know, here are available brain injury services, consider brain injury as part of your practice and your treatment. So wanting to have that. Number 4 is regional resource facilitation. This is something that we really have wanted to be pushing for and expanding as part of expanding, particularly the services of NDBIN, but also what's available for individuals across the state. Currently, the North Dakota Brain Injury Network, we have funding. We currently have, I would say, you know, 3.5 staff, although that's saying, because I would consider that sometimes I'm not 100% on NDBIN. So, but we have 3.5 staff. But because of that, we don't have the option of really having individuals located regionally, particularly in different areas. So like we don't have a representative that is serving like the southwest region of the state that is always there, able to be helping with support groups in that region, able to be outreaching to treatment providers, providing education and support for treatment providers, helping individuals connect to those treatment providers, those type of things. So that's something that from a funding perspective, we would like to continue to advocate for that increase of that. More brain injury informed providers. So always wanting to make sure that we're informing providers as much as possible about brain injury, particularly this is for non-brain injury specific providers. So that's part of why we said they're like the 1915I program as an example. Wanting to make sure that those non-brain injury providers are informed that they're seeing individuals with brain injury in their services as it is, just statistically, and how can they better be serving those individuals, helping demystify brain injury from them so it's not scary, helping them understand what are other treatment approaches and options that they can be referring people to as part of that. So, and then number 6 is really day programming and looking at what is available under long-term supports and services. So that's something that's a big component of that as well. As part of that, number 6, we did this legislative session as well, submit forward a, you know, potential legislative interim study for the interim legislator to study what would be the continuum of care for brain injury in North Dakota and what are the gaps in services and treatment that we could be helping address and wanting to move forward with that. So that was kind of a piece related to that. I should say, are there any questions related to services or anything before I move forward? Any comments? You guys are welcome to interrupt me at any time. No? Okay. So the next is education and awareness. So I would say as part of education, we are working in partnership with Department of Public Instruction. Really want to make sure that we are providing the best option and information available regarding education for our students with brain injury across the state, and making sure that our teachers and our paraprofessionals and special education instructors, they have that best information. One of the things that we at NDBIN really pride ourselves on, I think it's an amazing find, and I will always credit myself with it, is Carly Endries, our own staff. For those of you that don't know, does have a master's in special education and is currently working on her education doctorate, correct, D?
Yeah.
So, and has that expertise of having worked 10 years in the special education system in our state. So we really, that is an expertise that we are able to offer. We do offer that technical assistance of helping teachers with things like development of IEPs, helping schools with training and education for their teachers and paraprofessionals in the classroom. So really, but wanting to make sure to further that partnership with Department of Public Instruction. Number 2 is intro to brain injury. We are wanting to make sure that we have as much information about intro to brain injury out there as we can, always wanting to, really get people aware of what brain injury is and how it impacts people. 2 of the things that we have continued to work with on that is we're making sure that we're working on specific providers having training available for them. So direct care providers in the state under Medicaid are required to get training in brain injury, and wanting to continue that partnership. A public brain injury campaign. So really wanting to, previously, I would say about 5 or 6 years ago, we did actually have a public brain injury campaign where we have billboards regarding what brain injury is and treatment, and approaches. And that was something that really did lead to a real increase in calls and us being able to direct people onto treatment options and options that would be a best fit for them. So really wanting to, again, address what options are there available for a public campaign. And education for healthcare providers. I think this is one, number 4 is one that we continually get asked about, is making sure that healthcare providers are aware of brain injury, aware of the various treatment options, what are the approaches they can take with their acute brain injuries, but also their post-acute brain injuries, long-term care and community. So wanting to make sure that we're developing materials for those healthcare professionals. So any questions on education awareness? Okay, great. So next is housing. We want to make sure, actually right before this at noon today, there was a housing webinar that Carly participated in. So we're wanting to make sure that there is brain injury representation on North Dakota disability focused committees. So as there are disability committees that are looking at housing across the disability continuum, that we're making sure that there's North Dakota there's brain injury representation within that. Because I think sometimes brain injury gets lost sometimes within the broader brain injury or the broader disability picture, and wanting to make sure it's a part of that. And then the other is wanting to explore supportive long-term housing options. This is something that we definitely get a lot of questions about. This is something that I would say is probably one of our top questions, is looking at supportive long-term housing options that really meet the needs of individuals with brain injury. Sometimes individuals with brain injury wind up in our long-term skilled facilities nursing homes, but that might not be the best fit for them. Often the brain injury population tends to be younger. They tend to be higher functioning, have less physical needs, need more things like cognitive supervision, support, community integration support. And sometimes that isn't exactly a good fit with like a skilled nursing facility. So wanting to make sure that there are some long-term supported housing options that really are, meeting the needs of our individuals and are evolving as brain injury is evolving. So financial support. So this was one that definitely came a lot out of the survivors on our council and out of that survivor engagement group, was really feeling the tremendous impact on finances of a brain injury. They always say you're never, no matter who you are ever financially prepared for a brain injury. It is definitely something that can wipe out any type of financial resources. But one of the things, particularly under this, a first kind of goal is to just gather information on how is this something that's been addressed in other states and with other disabilities. Potentially, exploring those options and gathering just that information. And then on number 2, wanting to expand that awareness and the uses of financial resources. So a lot of times individuals with brain injury aren't necessarily aware that they can be eligible for things like Medicaid or Medicaid waiver support services. 1959 state plan amendment is a new service. It's a financial option. Some of the work that we do, and like we had somebody speak at our conference about using things like trust funds to assist with financial. So wanting to really kind of expand that awareness that there are options out there and ways to kind of tap into those resources sometimes. So wanting to kind of expand that awareness. And then number 3 within that is because we know right now we can expand awareness all we want, but those few things I mentioned, they aren't going to meet all the needs. Can we explore some new resources for financial options for individuals with brain injury? This may be something like exploring a voucher system. That many states have developed a voucher system where it then gives an individual access to some money that they can then use for any type of treatment provider they might want to access. They might be able to use that for travel funds. They might need to use that for putting a ramp in their home. So having kind of a voucher option that would allow for some flexibility. So wanting to be able to explore what are some options on that? How does it set up? And, is that something that North Dakota could look at? So any questions along that line? Okay, our next one is data. So one of the things that we really want to work on doing is strengthening data sharing and common definition use. This is something that we're just in the beginning phases of, particularly with working within our state agencies of how we look at data in the state. So what is the information that making sure that when we're talking about brain injury, we're kind of talking about the same thing. This is something that's, interesting and happening across even other states. I actually am part of a work group right now that is looking at really wanting to define brain injury so that we're all utilizing the same data points across the states. So most recently was talking with Nebraska about how they define it, and is that a model that we would want to follow, and really working towards that. So really that being a piece, because one of the things that was a big struggle when we completed the plan back in 2016 was everybody, when we talked about brain injury, we're talking about different things. Some were using broad acquired brain injuries. Some were only limited to traumatic brain injury. Some was only looking at, brain injury that had loss of consciousness. So really wanting to make sure that we're having some shared element and common definition use. The next is really wanting to explore Medicaid payment and coding options. So around this, really around data, wanting to be able to explore, is there the ability to look at Medicaid payment and how North Dakota is spending Medicaid dollars specifically around brain injury? So is this something, what are the coding options within the Medicaid data to try to see if we can look at how many individuals with brain injury are accessing Medicaid services, how much money is being spent on them, that type of thing. So really wanting to explore that moving forward. And then also the third piece is collaborating with the trauma registry. So the trauma registry keeps track of all our traumas that happen in the state. So continuing to collaborate with them as far as how we can pull brain injury data out of that trauma registry and moving forward with potential options. Some states have done things like made brain injury a reportable condition as part of their Department of Health registries and things like that. So really wanting to explore how would that make sense to North Dakota to move forward. And then this final piece is self-advocacy. And this is really within, as I said, that survivor engagement group. So one of the number ones under this is diversify survivor engagement group. So as part of that, as I said earlier, if you know anybody that's interested in a survivor engagement group that wants to be a part of it, more than happy to reach out and join that. This is a self-advocacy platform. So, and right now they're really determining how it should be set up. Wanting to expand that group's activities. What is the survivor engagement group doing? That group has talked about, you know, creating some opportunities around like doing an annual retreat, doing some advocacy training, that type of thing. So wanting to expand that. Number 3 is wanting to create a brain injury speakers bureau. And this is something that we have done on an informal basis as part of NDBIN, but wanting to expand that and really formalize it. We do have a lot of individuals with brain injury that like sharing their story, whether it be an individual or family member. They enjoy sharing their story. They really want their story to be used to help spread the awareness and word of brain injury. And so wanting to create a platform where we're supporting those individuals, but also making sure that the way that their story is handled and the way they are handled is all in a respectful manner, and that it's really being done respectfully. So that would be part of that, creating that speakers bureau. Expanding volunteer opportunities and activities. This is something we get asked a lot about at NDBIN, is does NDBIN have volunteer activities we can have people be a part of, but also individuals, whether it be the survivor engagement group or individuals with brain injury general, they want to know what volunteer opportunities there are out there for them to be engaged more with community, to be able to be giving back to the community and be a part of that. Strengthening connections to the Survivor Connection program. So Survivor Connections is a peer-to-peer phone call driven program that we run here at NDBIN. And right now that program isn't utilized as much as it could. So we want to really strengthen the connection with the survivor engagement group to that Survivor Connections and to increase the utilization of the Survivor Connections. And then finally is expand our Living Life Fully program. Currently, the Living Life Fully class is a class that we really have been launching, I would say in about this last year. It is a 7-week course on kind of management of brain injury and self-discovery. It was developed in Colorado, and we have just adapted it to North Dakota. It is one that is currently being taught by Carly and co-taught by our peer support specialist. And so they co-teach it together. And currently, I know we don't have an in-person one right now currently, but we have the virtual one, correct? Yep, correct. That is correct. So we have the virtual one going on. And so we've been offering those kind of on a rotating basis. Some in person, mainly we have done Grand Forks and Fargo so far, and then the virtual one. So that's been a great opportunity, but we want to continue to expand that. And so that is it, going through the kind of the broad goals and objectives. I didn't go through all of the nuances because a lot of that is still being worked out. The state plan does have the goals and objectives, but the actual action items under those we're looking for feedback on them. And we are, continually looking at, because we feel like those action items are going to be the things that are more on a, evolving basis as we complete tasks and we get things done. And that's what's really going to be continued to the working piece. So we're continuing to work on that part. So here is the link to the state plan on our website that has the full copy of the state plan that you can go through and read at your leisure, and has a survey for you to take to provide feedback. But I also welcome you guys today, that I would love to have some input, some thoughts, some sharing on it, any of that right now, that any of you might want to share about your thoughts or feelings.
You can unmute, you can type in the chat.
Anybody?
I see you unmuted. Do you have a question, Robin? Can't hear you if you're talking. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. Good job, Rebecca. You were so thorough. I just don't have
Okay, I was so thrilled. You guys don't have any comments or questions?
anything for us?
I don't know if anybody, we have a couple advisory council members on that have kind of been a part of the process. I don't know if you guys want to share at all your experiences with the process.
Hey, Josie.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I appreciate all the info and wanted to give you guys kudos. You've been doing so much hard work. It's so cool to see all these different projects and things that are occurring. And you know, for the survivors group, definitely check that out. It's an amazing resource. There's been ones for families too. It's been super helpful. So I just want to kind of give a little shout out. Way to go, guys, and thank you so much for everything you're doing and for setting these up and connecting with us.
Thank you, Josie. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I will say at NDBIN, we can't do anything if we don't have input from you guys. So having been involved in the brain injury world, it can't just come from us. So we really rely on the involvement of various people and that piece. So, you know, Jessica put in the chat, I'm happy to be a part of it. And you did a great job, Rebecca. When my dad had his brain injury in 2007, there was nothing when he left the hospital, and to see all these things in works is exciting. So I think that's the biggest piece to me that drives me is I hear from way too many people that there was nothing. It was like falling off a cliff when they left the hospital, when they left and not even knowing how to explore treatment options, what options were available for long-term care, any of that. And that's part of what we try to do here at the Brain Injury Network is just connect people as best we can for what's going to be a good fit for them and what options there are for them. So anybody else? I will say, to me, that having a state plan is only just the beginning. It is the stepping place of our, you know, it's why it's required for this federal grant. And it's really meant to guide us moving forward. So we look forward to, you know, the continued growth and development of our advisory council. As I said, the advisory council in the state is new, relatively new. You know, just got it started in 2017. So it was still kind of in its infancy. And then we had, of course, COVID happen. So it's kind of been, but I really feel the advisory council is starting to take form. We're also using grant funds to really work on the development of that advisory council. We do have an advisory council meeting coming up May 4th. And so you can always get information on that from, I believe, the state council and board's website, or you can always ask any of us here at NDBIN for information on that. A lot of people like to participate, listen in, watch that. As I said, there are I think a couple open seats will be opening for the advisory council in the next like 6 months or so. So always an option with that as well. And then from now that the advisory council is really working on the state plan, the next step is going to be the advisory council is really going to form some subcommittees to really look at some of these specific areas and helping guide and direct things. So any other questions?
I think we're good.
Good.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you all for
Thank you. We encourage you guys to go check it out and take the survey if you want to provide some input. Really appreciate that.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.